Welcome to another amazing episode of Raising Private Money. I'm Jay Connor, your host, also known as the Private Money Authority. And this is the show where we talk about how to raise private money for your real estate deals without even asking for money. Now, in addition to that, I have amazing guests that come here and join me. And today is no exception. Today, my guest, we're actually going to be focusing in on his favorite subject, which is intention. And that is, what is it that you need to intentionally do in your business in order to achieve the results and the goals that you want? Well, his backstory is pretty interesting. He actually was a high school teacher for 8 years. And after he'd been teaching high school for 8 years, he left his day job. Well, actually, when you're a school teacher, that's like 24 hours a day. He left that to become a full time real estate investor. Well, very, very quickly, his business grew to over seven figures a year. And he did that in a very, very short, quick 4 years. And that led him to asking himself the question, how is it that he and his wife achieved so much success in such a short period of time without struggling and facing the challenges that most real estate investors experience? Well, they quickly realized that it was their unique ability to put together these actionable goals and achieve them in a very, very short period of time. In fact, in a fraction of the time that they initially thought they could. Well, that's what we're going to dive into today. How can you get your real estate business put on like jet fuel to get things accomplished? We're going to dive in just a moment. You're going to meet my special guest, Eric Vogel, right after this.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Connor.
Well, hello there, Eric, and welcome to the show.
Jay, it is an absolute honor and pleasure to join you today. Thank you.
Well, it's my honor and pleasure to have you. Now, Eric, you and your wife have got quite the story on accomplishing so much, like from going from scratch, no business, never having any experience, to having just phenomenal results and success in a very, very short period of time. I want to dive into that in just a moment. But first of all, I want to hear the story. My audience wants to hear the story. There's quite a jump from high school teacher to phenomenal success real estate investor. Tell us about that and how in the world that happened.
Well, I'll give you as quick a version as I can. We started in 2017 with an accidental rental. I moved out. I couldn't sell the house. VA loan, zero equity. And my real estate agent said, how about you rent it out? I said, well, sounds like a great plan because I ain't got $8,000 to bring to the table to close it. So I rented it out for 1 year, met my wife during that time. She said, Eric, you're a horrible landlord. Let me help you. So we dove into education and figured out how to become a landlord. And in that, realized how much money you could actually make in real estate investing. So that led to us figuring out, how do we become real estate investors? Well, we dove into all the education on how to buy, rent, rehab, refinance, and repeat the process. And obviously we did the BRRRR strategy. And so we found a lot of dilapidated properties. We fixed them up. We rented them out. We refinanced them, and that quickly snowballed. And now that's 2017, 18, 19, 20, right before the ramp up. So we were able to accumulate a lot of properties in a short amount of time using that strategy. And it was about 2019 that I realized I had already replaced my income, and we're well on our way to replacing my wife's income. So let's quit our jobs and start living a life of financial freedom. Now, in that process, it wasn't all, rainbows, butterflies, unicorns. It wasn't all that. There was an incredible amount of sacrifice. For about 3 years, we did not have connections to the outside world. We were educating. We were doing deals. We were renovating. We were just heads down, buried in the sand, figuring out how to make it out of our W-2s, because we started with the goal in mind of, we want to be financially free and have the freedom to do what we want, when we want, when we have kids. So it was about a month after we had our first baby that my wife's maternity leave was ending with her job that we finally ran the numbers, and we'd been keeping track with it, and we had just done a rent raise across the portfolio of about $15 a house. And with that rent raise across the large portfolio, we had hit our number. We were financially free. And so fast forward to today, we've just been continuing the process. We've changed strategy here and there a little bit, but it all started with the goal in mind of where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? When do we know that we have enough? And then what do we need to cut out to get there?
How do you know when you've got enough to quit your day job?
Well, there's a lot of different factors you can call it. A lot of people call it your monthly nut. Gary Johnston calls it your monthly nut. We called it our lean FIRE number, which is a skinny version of your financial independence retire early number. And so we figured out what were all of our recurring bills that we could not avoid. And then we took that number and then we added about 25% to it and said, that's going to be our lean FIRE number. And then we're not going to actually retire until we get to our mid-size FIRE number, which was about 50% more than our actual number. And then one day soon, we're going to hit our fat FIRE number, which is 200% more than what our monthly income and, unescapable bills are.
Yes. Yes. Similarly, I call it the freedom number. I like the way you've got it broke down, though. You've got like different levels
Mhm.
of that freedom number. And also, once someone knows what that number is, I like walking people through the exercise of backing into what have you got to do and what have you got to specifically accomplish in order to get to that number. For example, I'm in the world of private money. We do a lot of flips. And I'll
Mhm.
say, okay, well, you need X amount per month to really enjoy life the way you want to enjoy it. And here's your set bills that you got. Well, in order to do that, how many deals have you got to do? Well, how many deals? Well, that depends on what your average profit is per deal. Of course, in
Mhm.
your model, it's not a
Yep.
profit per deal. It's actually cash flow, right?
Right. It's
Yeah.
it's absolutely cash flow.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you really, really grew your portfolio quickly, as I know you did, and
Mhm.
you had a large number of rentals, a large number of portfolio. Well, the audience wants to know, what is your definition of a large portfolio? How many properties and houses did you grow that to?
Well, I'll tell you what, there is a vain or a vanity metric out there that people love to broadcast, and that is how many properties or how many doors do you have? And, I just got off of a conference I went to in Atlanta just recently, and there's that vanity metric of how many doors do you got? Well, Jay, if I told you I have 500 doors, would you be impressed? And hopefully your answer would be, it really depends. But if I told you those 500 doors brought me negative $100 a month each, that's not a great portfolio to have. But if I told you I had 100 doors and they all made $100 each, then that would be quite impressive. Now, to reach our FIRE number, we did get up to 20 properties that were cash flowing very well. And then we started to figure out, okay, some of these properties are really high touch. I want to spend more time with my kids. So let's 1031 exchange out of that and move some things around and really work on making our independence very, low touch so that we can continue to spend our days doing what we want to do.
That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. You can have 500 doors
Mhm.
and be losing money. I mean, it's like how much revenue, it doesn't matter what business you're in, how much
Right.
revenue do you gross per year means absolutely nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, annual gross revenue could actually be gross.
Quite gross.
Depending on your overhead, depending on your number of employees, depending on the expenses you've got, going out the door. When you started out, and we're going to get in here for the sake of the audience, we're going to get in here in just a moment on how it is exactly Eric grew his business so quickly. But first, when someone is starting out, there's always the danger of some very, very costly mistakes. If somebody doesn't know what they're doing or they haven't been educated or trained very well. So I've got a two-part question. I'll go ahead and give you both questions. You can answer them in order. The first question is, When you were starting out, what were some of your early mistakes that you made, and what would you go back and do different? Lessons learned from those mistakes personally yourself.
Mm.
Early mistakes. Second question after that is, when you're observing new real estate investors, what are some of the common mistakes that you see new real estate investors making, and what could they do to avoid those mistakes?
Thank you for asking that. So, some of those early mistakes we made were not actually tangible mistakes, they were all mental mistakes. And it was, quite frankly, what is scarcity and what is abundance? And most of us in life, approach money, approach opportunity, approach our life with a scarce mindset. There's only a finite amount of resources that there are available to you. Like, there's only a finite amount of deals, so I have to be stingy. I have to grab every one that I can and hold on to it. There's only a finite amount of money out there. I have to be very careful with how I'm giving money out or how I'm using my money. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that we made in the very beginning, is that we were hyper scarce because we didn't want to get into a deal and then not have enough money for the next deal. So we'd always wait for the next deal until we were done with that first deal, and didn't
Mm,
realize that there's an abundance of money out there, of people that want to give you money to do deals if you just go find them. And so what really bogged us down in the beginning was I was doing all the work on the properties. I didn't get out there and hunt more deals while I was under contract and working on the first one or the second one. I wasn't scaling. And so it was quickly that we realized I can't work in this business. I have to work on the business, and I have to be abundant in my thinking that there are plenty of deals out there. There's plenty of money out there. If I go find the deals, the money will follow. And if there are too many deals that I come into, I can share the gift of that deal with others and still remain a part of that deal. So that was a real big struggle in the very beginning, was just a scarcity mindset. And what am I seeing with new investors coming in? What common mistakes am I seeing is they're all chasing the shiny objects out there. We see so many gurus on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever social platform you're on, that are pitching these really sexy ideas on how to wholesale, on how to subject to, on how to wholesale subject twos. And while all of these things are really interesting, really flashy, and they always show these closing checks and how you can generate 50 grand a month over this, it's really, really hazardous if you're not following the proper steps. And in saying that, you have to be above board morally, ethically, and above all, legally, because you can find yourself in a trap. And none of these gurus are going to be able to solve your mental problems. None of them are going to be able to get you over the hump of, how am I actually going to change as a person? And that's where it really starts, is how do you change your thinking? How do you change your mindset? And there are so many steps to do that. And it doesn't happen overnight. And it definitely doesn't happen with a $3,000 program that you found on Facebook.
well, let's dive into that. And that is, how do you fix the mindset? I tell new real estate investors all the time, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to invest in real estate until you own the real estate that is between your ears, right? And so I want us to dive into that. But before we do, you talked about mistakes you see as new real estate investors chasing the shiny objects, the shiny object syndrome. By chance, Eric, have you ever heard of or read the book by Napoleon Hill titled Outwitting the Devil?
Now, that's one Napoleon Hill book I haven't gotten to yet.
Well, you're going to love it, because it's essentially, here's what it says. Essentially, the devil says, I don't have to like tempt, Jay. I don't have to tempt Eric with these immoral things or sin or temptation like you would generally hear. He says, all I got to do is distract him from what he's trying to achieve. And so that shiny object syndrome is exactly what you said. It's all about distractions, and getting rid of the distractions and staying intentionally focused, as you are a master at. So let's dive into that. Let's dive
Yes.
into that. How do you fix? And I know we can't fix this or answer the question in the time we have on this podcast, but
Yes.
we can start chipping away at it. What's the very first thing that you advise other people to do in order to start fixing the scarcity mindset, to start fixing the mindset to where they can be intentional and stay focused on what they need to stay focused on?
Right, Jay. So I feel like there's two answers in that question, and two questions in the question itself. How do you get out of your scarcity, and then how do you start taking action? One easy way to get out of scarcity that everyone should be doing is to start giving more. Because once your hands are open and you are not worried that what you give is never going to come back to you in any way, you have to get rid of that mentality. Start giving. Give to a church, give to a charity, give to your local community in some way. And I urge everyone, go ahead and take 10% of your income and start giving it away. Until you get into the mindset of giving, you will be closed to receiving. And the receiving end of that can be monetary, but more than likely it's going to be energetic. And the energetic reception of giving is going to be compound growth. And we know the most powerful force on the face of this earth is compound interest. But I beg you to just think, how powerful is compound growth inside your mind and inside your heart? And then the other side of that, how can we start to gain clarity and focus on what do we actually need to do? You have to become very intuitive with who you are. And to do that, I've developed a program that really helps to uncover and peel back the layers of that onion to figure out who is it really on the inside of your skin and what do they really want out of life. There are too many folks end up on their deathbed that wish they would have achieved more, wish they could have, wish they would have made different decisions. And I don't want that to be you. So how do you really get there? Well, I have an awesome little flyer on my website that you can go download right now, print it, put it on your mirror in your bathroom, that will give you these 5 pillars that my business stands on, and what gave me the clarity and focus, and my wife and I the clarity and focus to reach financial independence. And it really starts with the biggest pillar, the cornerstone, the foundation of is, why do you want it? Because if there's not a big enough why, if you don't know why you want to achieve independence, financial independence, or just safety and security in your later years of life, you're never going to achieve it. And then above that level is dreaming big. We often do not dream big enough. If your dreams don't scare you, they're too small. And then above that is setting actionable goals. And that comes into setting like a 3-year target and then backing up into setting actionable weekly, daily, almost hourly goals. And above that is taking massive, imperfect action. Don't wait to take action until you feel like you got everything lined up. Start taking action on your goals. And then at the top of this is what we all strive for, is financial freedom and knowing what is enough. That way, when you get there, you don't burn yourself out and ruin it.
I love your first piece of advice, which was start giving more. Start giving more. You read in the Bible, and it's in a lot of places, and that is, it's not about reaping. It's not about reaping. It's all about sowing. It's all about sowing. I can't reap anything. I can't get anything back until I have given energy to it, until I have sown. I mean, there ain't no corn coming up out of the ground until the seed is put in the ground. So
Yes.
obviously we've got to take action first. I'm so glad you brought that up. Let's play a little game, Eric. Let's say I'm a brand new real estate investor. Let's say I haven't done my first deal. I haven't even done a deal yet. But I've been to the seminars, I got my education, I've read the books, I've hired a coach or a mentor. I've been given all the information that I need in order to make wise decisions on what offer I should make, what the offer should look like, what's the maximum amount that I should offer on that particular property, how much private money, if I'm borrowing private money, should I do. I know how to do subject to deals. I know how to do creative financing. I got it. I know it. But yet I'm scared to death to make an offer because I'm afraid I'm going to screw up and I'm going to lose money and it's just going to make a wreck of my life even worse than it already is, even though I've got all the knowledge. What would you say to me as to how to overcome my fear?
I would
Of
give you a
fear,
yep.
fear of screwing up, fear of screwing up.
Right. There's two things that I would bring up. First is I would give you a book called Making It Big on Little Deals or Building Wealth One House at a Time. I think that's the same book by John Schaub. I would give you that book and just read that book and realize that you make bigger, scarier decisions than failing on some type of small real estate deal. You make decisions every day that are way bigger than that, as in how much are you contributing to your 401k? Are you really securing financial independence when you turn 62? Are you really hoping and gearing or hoping and relying on government pensions? Are you really relying on these other pension systems to take care of you when you're 62? I promise you're going to be underwhelmed when you get there and you see that it's nowhere near as much as you thought it would be. So first, I would give them that book and say, read this book and realize it's not that big of a risk. Second, what I would do is I've lost my thought. But I would first of all give them that deal.
Let me tell
That
you
book.
something, Eric. Let me give you some encouraging news. It's not going to get any better.
It came back to me. I do have it back now, Jay. The
I knew
second thing,
if I bought you a second or two, it'd come back.
yeah, I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and that is what is causing the fog, I guess it is. But the second thing I would tell them is Warren Buffett is one of the most successful investors out there. And he has one simple principle when he invests in a business or a deal or a transaction. He has one simple principle, and that is, do I believe and trust in this vehicle? Do I believe and trust in it? And I'm not asking these investors to believe and trust in real estate because that is a tangible thing. I mean, that is a variable thing. What I'm asking them to believe and trust in is themselves. Do they bet
Mm,
on themselves to be successful? And so I ask people all the time, well, how much do you trust yourself? How much do
mm.
you believe in yourself? And until you firmly believe that you can do it, you will not do the deal. You're not going to do it until you firmly believe that you will not fail. You will not give up, not on the deal, but on yourself.
It's funny you say that, Eric. I say funny, not funny, ha ha, but it's interesting that you say that because when it comes to belief and trust, so I've been saying the same affirmations every morning for 23 years. And I say them with my live event attendees every time. And here's the affirmation: raise your right hand over your heart, raise your left hand. Here we go. I believe in myself. I believe in others. Others believe in me. I trust myself. I trust others. Others trust me. And you're so right, Eric. Until that is a foundational, subconscious, in your heart, in your soul belief, it ain't going to happen, right?
It's not going to happen. People are the only real obstacle out there. There's no financial crisis or economic collapse or, empty bank account out there that is unsolvable. All of those are solvable. The one thing that is not solvable is your conviction that you are possible, that you can do it. That is the only thing that is unsolvable, is that you have inner work to do. You have some convincing to do. Whether you got to read that every day, 5 times a day until you actually believe it, you got to do it. You've got to believe in yourself.
Eric, let's say I didn't believe in myself.
Oh boy.
Let's say I didn't. Let's say I didn't believe in myself.
Yes, sir.
What would you say to me? How do I fix that? How do I get confidence and I have like negative confidence?
Right. So I would give you an exercise to do. And what I would ask you to do is every morning write down 5 things that you are grateful for and write 5 things
Mm,
down that you never thought you could achieve, but you have already achieved them. There's a great book called The Gap and the Gain. And a lot of people are searching for success in the gain, and they never feel like they're accomplishing anything because other people out there are achieving so much more than they are. But I encourage them to look back on the last entire lifetime and think about where you started. How did you start your life and where are you today? What kind of gap, what kind of gain is there? right? The gap is in front of you and you're going to achieve that. But look at what you've done. Look at everything that you've accomplished in your life. And then I would have them journal on that, or just maybe write down in bullet point format of what have you accomplished so far? What are you telling me you can't do it? Look what you've already done. And so it's a boost of self-esteem and a boost of confidence when you just point out you're already successful. And you just got to highlight it. You got to bring it out because, it's easy to be pessimistic in this world. It's easy to get down on your luck and get depressed or disappointed in your life. But until you start highlighting the things that you do have and the things that you have accomplished, that's when you start to really believe in yourself.
I love it. Great advice. One thing I used to hear my dad say all the time, and he still says it, he's 91 and a half years old. He's slap dab in the middle of a 350 house subdivision development that's halfway built out. When I grow up, I want to be just like him. But I used to hear him say all the time, quote unquote, he says, Jay, scared money doesn't make money. What do you think about that quote, Eric?
Yep, scared money. I mean, I've never heard that quote, and I'm just going to try to mentally unpack it. I am not a great thinker on the spot, but you're going to see it in real life. So scared money doesn't make money. And that's the idea that you're holding it too tightly, you're holding it too close, and you're afraid that you won't make the return that you're searching for, or that it won't perform, or that you'll never get it back. It's probably related to scarcity versus abundance. And, if you're afraid to put your money to work, it can never go to work. All of the dollar bills you have in your bank account, stop thinking of them as dollar bills. You got to think of them as workers, and they'll never go get to work and start bringing you more money until you put them to work. And so if you're just surrounded by this, you're fearful of letting go of money because you're afraid it won't come back. You're obviously never going to let go. And until you let go, it can't come back.
And that's the opposite of your advice that you gave when we started out. And that is start giving more, right? Start giving more and stop trying to hang on to it. Eric, you mentioned a moment ago your website and that there's a free resource there to download.
Yes, sir.
What is that website? We can go ahead and give out to everybody, and the download, the free gift that you mentioned there, and any other way that you'd like for my audience to connect with you, because, I see it all the time. We can work with people. We can give them the tools. We can give them the information, the A to Z, structure, deal, etc. But the mindset is the most important. In my opinion, I believe mindset is at least 90% of your success. And the other, of course, is very important. You got to know what you're doing and etc. But the mindset is so important. What's that website, and how else can people connect with you?
Yes, sir. So on onpurposeinvestor.com/products, you can absolutely go there and download a couple of my flyers that I have that I print out and give to people that I meet and say, listen, just hold on to this. And when you come back around to it, just put some effort into it. I also have a couple of webinars on that page, but we also have a program called Level Up, and it's all about leveling up your life and getting to the next version of yourself. So on the screen right now, you'll see a link to visit onpurposeinvestor.com/private money. And that's going to take you to our landing page for Level Up. And if you scroll down and you go to the pricing, click on yearly and use the code RPM24 and receive a 50% discount on the yearly pricing. And when you do a program like this, you're going to come into not just, videos and a manual and learn how to change your life. You're also going to be connected to a bunch of resources, a whole community of people that I've worked with to change their life. So you're going to be working with people that are at the other end of transformation to help you through all of the struggles you might be facing.
Eric, that's amazing. Thank you so much for those resources that you just gave out. And thank you so much, Eric, for joining me here on this show.
Absolutely.
There you have it, my friend. Another amazing episode of Raising Private Money. I'm so thankful and grateful that you've joined us here on the show. And be sure and not miss out on any upcoming episodes that we're going to be releasing. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe and ring that bell. And we look forward to seeing you right here on the next episode of Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/money guide. That's JCONNER.com/money guide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconnor.com/money guide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Connor.